What does FOMO, JOMO, and EMP have to do with COVID? Stay with me. I'm going to explain it in just a moment. So, what do all of these acronyms mean? All these words, FOMO, JOMO, EMP. Some of you might have heard this, okay? For instance, I want you all out there, I'm talking to individuals as well, is if you're in the silent generation, the generation that was born in 1943 to 1964. That's my generation. Did I know what that meant? The silent generation did not probably know what these acronyms mean. Well, what's the next generation? The boomers from 65 to 80. If you're a boomer, I want you to raise your hand. Did you know what those acronyms meant? I don't see many boomers raising their hand, but most of the boomers are the ones watching this, so you might want to stay attention because you want to be in the hip. How about the millennials? The millennials were born from 91 to 95. Many of them knows what they might want to tune it off right now. Well, how about the Gen Zs? The Gen Zs are from 96 to 2010. Not many Gen Zs watch this because they're pretty healthy. They have other things to do. They're keeping them busy. They probably know what FOMO, JOMO, and EMP is. And how about the Zoomers? Well, come on. The Zoomers were born after 2011. Probably none of the Zoomers are watching this today. They probably know what FOMO, JOMO, and EMP is. But I'm going to explain to you what it is, and I'm going to also explain what it has to do with COVID. But before that, I want us to learn a little bit about history. And in previous videos, I talked about how the Bible is true. Scientifically, we can take it to the bank. And if you want to see the science behind the truth in the Bible, look at one of our old videos where we talked about it. But I want to refer you to Daniel. We're going to learn about these acronyms through Daniel and learning from the past, bringing it to the forward. So first is Daniel 1, verses 12. He says, "Please test your servants for 10 days and let them give us vegetables to eat and water to drink." Pulse is another name that they use for that. And this was just when he started his life in the Babylonian Empire. He had been away, he'd been taken away. Unfortunately, by now he might have been near eunuchhood, which is never a good thing to be. But he was taken away from family. He had a few friends there. But he said, listen, I want to have some vegetables to eat and water to drink. And later in the story, in verse 20, it says, "And in all matters of wisdom and understanding, about which the king examined them, he found them," Daniel and his friends who wanted to eat healthy, 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers who were in all his realm. Wow. So what does that have to do with our words today? What does that have to do with FOMO, JOMO, and EMP? Let's go over each of those. FOMO is the fear of missing out. Might have Daniel had the fear of missing out? Well, yeah, he probably missed out on having a family. He missed out on his homeland. He probably missed out on a lot. So he had a lot of fears, and it's not uncommon for us to have fears in life. I know a lot of students they miss going to ball games. My son missed going to cafeteria. He couldn't go to classes. Many of us have missed going to church, fellowship with others, even eating out. We missed being with our families. Yeah, there was a certain fear of missing out that's come with this pandemic that was natural. So I'm sure Daniel had a little bit of FOMO. What does JOMO stand for? Well, that was the joy of missing out. When we think about this story in Daniel, could Daniel have having some joy when he missed out on his whole life? Well, it's very possible. It's very possible that his walk with God and his worship with God was so strong that he had joy in just knowing he was following God's will, despite all of the bad things that happened in his life that would seem bad to us. He knew that God had a greater plan, and he could have certainly found joy in that. How about us today? Are we, during this pandemic, finding joy of missing out? Well, in some ways, it's been good. I know it's given us more time to read, more time to be with family, more time to think about what's really important in this world. You know, here's a pandemic affecting 7 billion people. All of the people in the world are affected in some way or the other. You know, what is God trying to allow happening? Is this a time for us to get closer to Him? Is it time to share the gospel? Is it time to get back to biblical prescriptions? Well, maybe that is part of the joy of missing out. Maybe there's been some good, families coming together, us realizing what's really important. Maybe it's sort of reset some of our priorities. So there's the FOMO and the JOMO, but what are the EMP? Well, look at Daniel. That's where I get the EMP from, is Daniel, as he had gone through the FOMO, probably wasn't experiencing the JOMO quite yet, but he comes up with this third acronym that I want to throw out with us, and that's the acronym of EMP. You might not have heard that, whether you're a silent generation, a boomer, a millennial. You might not have heard that, but I'm going to throw this into our vocabulary. EMP, eat more plants. Daniel says, let's do some EMP. I've done the FOMO thing. I'm heading to the JOMO, but I'm going to do EMP, eat more plants, because we find in this story, when he ate more plants, later on in verse 20, he was a lot smarter after the time went by, 10 times better than the magicians and astrologers who were in the realm that might have not done the EMP. Daniel might have missed out, but he saw the value of EMP. And most importantly, this wasn't just about EMP. This was also about his worship to God. He stayed close to God. He knew that God was going to take care of him no matter what. Now, how is this EMP going to help us? Well, I'm hoping that it will also help us remember to stay close to God by looking at these stories. But plants help us fight COVID. Plants have minerals like zinc, potassium, magnesium, lots of good stuff in them that helps enhance our immune system. Our immune system needs minerals to function well. So plants help our immune system. The first arm helps keep it strong. It has antioxidants. You know, when the body gets old, it's called oxidation. We get old. So antioxidants slow down aging, keeps everything from aging, keeps everything better, keeps some of these immune reactions from being so dangerous. We also know that plants enhance the bowel flora. What's that mean? Well, you have 1 trillion bacteria in your bowel, and what you put in plants help you have more good bacteria. You have less inflammation. You turn on the dangerous part of the immune system less. You don't have these different things in our body like sulfides and things like that damage us, that weaken our immune system. And also, when we eat plants, we have less immune stimulation. So we know that people that eat plant-based diets have less of these inflammatory diseases, less of these cytokine storms. And you've heard of that. When someone gets sick in the hospital, the virus gets in them, and then they make these cytokine storms, and all this immune system gone crazy is what damages lots of the body. And that's why we treat them with dexamethasone, and we try to block that response down. But if you can block that down with healthy eating, that's even a greater thing. So that's why I want us to think about Daniel. And remember, we might have had some of this JOMO, FOMO, all these things, we might have had some of it, but I want to throw this new one out for you today to help you feel better, to help you think about not only your relationship with your body, but eating healthy things to fight COVID. But more importantly, as you eat more plants, I want you to think about this Daniel story and think about how he got to this JOMO stage, this joy of missing out, because as he walked with God, he saw the big picture. He saw how important it was no matter what happened in life. And he had some bad things happen to him. No matter what, he was going to be faithful, and God blessed him. And as you stay faithful to him, God is going to bless you too. It might not be now, because God sees us for eternity. If you're seeking clarity on God's leading through these troubling and confusing times, if you might be having some FOMO or JOMO, I want you to, again, remember to eat more plants, worship more, and I want you to sign up for the newsletter in the description below. If you like today's video, be sure you click the subscribe button so that you don't miss any of our future content. And thanks for watching. I personally enjoyed being with you, and we pray for you, and we'll chat again soon about more biblical prescriptions for life.